Good morning everybody, I'm the Bear Bow Brummy, and today we're out in the garden because it's a lovely day today. Anyway, today's video I want to talk about buying your first bow. It's the question that so many people ask me during the course of beginners classes I do 2 or 3 beginners classes a year, and it's predominantly the biggest question people ask me. It comes in 2 forms. Firstly, they'll either ask, what bow should I buy for my first bow? And the second question is, how much should I pay for my first bow? And my answer to that question is, I don't know. Simply because they're kind of asking the wrong question. What you've got to do if you're buying your first bow is ask yourself some questions before you start considering what bow to buy. First, you've got to ask yourself, what type of archery do I want to do? And that's the difficult question, because in the NFAS alone, there are 13 different styles of archery using various different types of bow or variations on a type of bow. Archery GB is the same. I'm sure world archery societies around the world are also the same. There are lots of variations. So firstly, you've got to ask yourself, what type of archery do you want to do? Are you just a leisure archer? Do you fancy traditional longbow medieval type archer, or more high-end competitive Olympic style archery or something like that? So first you have to decide what kind of archery you want to do. The second question you have to ask yourself is, how committed am I to archery itself? Is it just going to be for fun? Do you just want to shoot at home? If you're only going to shoot at home, all you want to do is have some arrows, shoot at a target in your house with no real reason to consider improving very much, purely for fun, then that's one level you can look at. Secondly, are you going to join an archery club or an archery range, become a casual member, shoot on a weekend, again more or less for fun, maybe go in a couple of competitions purely for a bit of interest? Or are you a much more serious kind of archer and you're thinking about serious competition, moving up in level, maybe even up to, if you're that good, up to world level, Olympic level? Who knows? You've got to decide how serious you are about your archery itself. The third question you have to ask yourself, and this will limit your options considerably, is, what budget do I have? And there's a thing, because in this day and age, people's budgets vary considerably. I can't tell you what bow to buy because I don't know what your budget's going to be. You may only have a couple of £100 to spend. You may have £2,000-3,000 to spend. I don't know. So that's for you to decide for yourself. So once you've thought about the 3 things I've just said, you've now got to consider the options you got to buy a bow. Behind me here on the table, I've got 6 different types of bow. They cover almost every style that the NFAS has to offer. And a variation of 1 or 2 of these bows probably covers the whole range. I may have missed 1 or 2 out, but it'll give you a really good idea of what's available to you. So let's start at the bottom end. What I've got here is a fiberglass and plastic bow. If you only want to shoot in your garden, you know what? This would probably do the job. Some people consider this a toy. Trust me, this is not a toy. You can still hurt yourself or somebody else with this thing. We tend to use these on taster sessions for young children because they're pretty light. They're nice and easy to use. There's no arrow rest or anything like that. You just put it on top of the grip. But if you want to shoot in your garden, this thing isn't actually bad. They're very cheap. They're not expensive at all, and they shoot reasonably well, as I'll show you once I get the arrow on there. There we go. See? They're all right if you just want to get your archery fix in your back garden. Not bad, nice and cheap. You can do it with that. A step up from that, we're moving into traditional longbow style archery. This is as basic as it gets probably when it comes to real archery. This is a piece of wood and a string. That's more or less what it is. Got a nice leather grip on it. Look at that. This is a mass-produced one. You can get these handmade for yourself, but if you go down the handmade route, they can be very expensive. This one is a mass-produced one. It's a laminated bow, so it's got 3 pieces of wood involved in it. There's a nice thing. And again, price points are fairly reasonable. They vary considerably. As you say, you can go for a mass-produced one or you can go for a handmade one. But again, if you want to do traditional archery, this is what you can use. Shoots quite well. It's quite powerful, that one, actually. So that's another option for you. Your third option is a variation on the longbow, and it's a flat bow. You see, the profile is very thin up there. It's got a nice grip. The advantage over the longbow is it has a cutaway just there, which means it has its own built-in arrow rest, and you actually shoot the arrow off the rest. I can't shoot this one because I haven't got a string for it. It's not mine anyway, so I've borrowed it off somebody. But again, that's a step up. It's a laminated one, and again, that's a step up from the longbow. From there, we'll move on to your recurve bow. This is something you might recognise if you've ever done a beginner's course. It's predominantly the kind of thing we give to people at beginner's course. It's a fairly basic recurve. It has no adjustment to it. I've put a plunger button and a different type of arrow rest on it. You can see it just there. And for basic archery, it's fine. It shoots pretty well. It has no form of bow adjustment really. It's just the 2 bolts that hold the limbs on. And again, if you want to shoot at your club and you're not interested in competing at the higher levels, this isn't a bad option at all. Shoots pretty well. Moving on from that, we have high-end Olympic style recurve. This one's my baby, and this is right at the top end. The price difference between this one and the previous one is huge, but again, it has all the adaptations, the functionality that you need. You can customize this to your own shooting style and shooting ability. You can adjust the limb angles in 2 different directions. You can adjust the limb angle in that direction and in that direction to completely set the bow up perfectly for you. This is the difference from over the basic one. If you want to shoot high-end archery, this is the kind of thing you need, but they are not cheap, is the problem. But if you want to go high-end, possibly make it up to Olympic or world level, then I'm afraid this is where you have to go. This bow I absolutely love, and it shoots beautifully. I love this thing. Anyway, moving on from there, if you want to go high-end and full-on mechanical, we have a compound bow. Compound bows, if you know anything about them, use cogs and gears to produce very high poundage, but the poundage drops off as soon as you're at full draw, so you can hold it for long enough. And these tend to be very expensive. The way it kind of works with one of these is, from what I've seen with people, the sky's the limit with one of these things. But they're very nice, very technical, very high-end, and a whole art in itself. They're completely different to any other bow you've got. This one's actually left-handed, so I've got to shoot this the wrong way around. But, as I said, they're very good things. If you want to go compound archery, these things are good. Oh, come on, get on there. There we go. And they're very good things. So that is also an option for your compound bow, but I warn you, these things can also be very, very expensive. Again, there's a massive variation, but they do tend to be very high priced. So basically, those are your options. So those are the kind of things you have to consider when thinking about buying your next bow. Remember, when you are buying your next bow, when you set a budget for yourself, remember you have to buy lots and lots of accessories for these things. If you buy the bow, you'll just get the bow. You have to consider you've got to buy arrows, a quiver, a string for it, not necessarily with the compound, they come with a string, an arrow rest if you're buying a recurve style, some kind of release if you're having a compound, sights maybe, stabilizers, a bowstringer, and probably many other things that I haven't remembered. But remember to budget those things in. Also, whatever you set your budget to, allow yourself a little bit of an extra buffer, just in case when you arrive at the shop, and this happens to all of us, when you arrive at the shop, you see something nice and shiny, and you quite fancy it. There's a plane over there. Yeah, you quite fancy something nice and shiny, and you get talked into it by the salesman. I'll actually talk about actually going to the shop and buying your bow in person when you get there in the next video. Anyway, for now, I've been the Bear Bow Brummie. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.